Yo, what's up? What's going on, man? I don't like the way that looks at all. I don't like the way that looks even one bit. What's going on? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to this fine Friday edition of BS with Hannas. I gotta check the audio. I'm busting out this thing right here. This John is called a popper stopper. I learned that in the recording studio my first time around. Because when I listened back to my Wednesday edition, that audio was atrocious. Dog, I was listening back and it's just snap, crackle, pop, and motherfucking just nonsense. So I'm hoping this will alleviate some of that as I learn how to YouTube correctly. But I guess for continuity's sake, I should also move it and talk into the mic. I wonder how different that is. For my own sake, I'm going to listen back eventually and kind of get the gist of it because I also turned the gain down. So this is learning in live time, learning in live motherfucking time. But in any event, while I load the audio to test it, to check it, good morning. Good morning, Be Hannas. That's me, Nikki Be Hannas, going live on YouTube, my little morning talk show. The whole premise of this show is that I like to not gain maxing. Yeah, no. Only fucking gains maxing, bull. Yeah, what's up? Does it sound all right? Does it sound all right? I guess you can hear me.
Yeah, what's up? Does it sound all right?
Ooh, it does.
I guess you can hear me.
Nice. All right, well, fuck this popper stopper then. Let me get this shit out of here. Yeah, get out of here. Yeah, turning the gain down helps a little bit. What's going on? Anyway, welcome to it. Welcome to it. Happy Friday. EMP, you're the man. Happy birthday to you. HBD EMP. Motherfucking, yeah, anyway, back to myself. Since it's my show. Good morning, Behanas. That's me. This is going live on YouTube. You can find this at BS with Behanas on YouTube. Eventually, I send it out to Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, etc. You can find my music, heavy blues metal, NikkiBehanas.com, NikkiBehanas.bandcamp.com, Nikki Behanas on all streaming services. I got 3 people in here. Yo, we're moving up in the motherfucking world. Good morning, everybody. So what am I thinking? The whole premise of this show today, let me do this first. The premise of the show is that I like to wake up, take a nice long walk, read some good shit. A lot of times I listen to some good shit while I walk. And then I'm in here fucking talking to the people. We about to go lift some weights after this. Friday arm day, second arm day of the week. You know what it is. And then we go to work. So this is where I'm talking to the people. I'm talking about what I find interesting out here. Now, what I found interesting, I was talking about Thumos and Daimon and fucking Cleos, all that cool shit the other day. So my buddy, it's funny. There's been a lot of cool things. Random old school friends hitting me up. So my boy, let's just call. We know him, we love him. Some of us in here. My man, Deadly Sinner AK, hit me up the other day. And we talk sporadically at best. But my man hit me up. He was curious if I'd ever read this thing by Benedict Anderson called Imagined Communities. No, I had never read Imagined Communities by Benedict Anderson. But coming from this bull, my man Deadly Sinner AK, fucking outstanding musician. Love that kid. Big time. Need to get him in the gym though. Feed him some fucking cheeseburgers, but that's an aside. Huge intellect on bull. He's fucking always been extraordinarily smart. And I guess if we were to put him into a paradigm, since we like to do that, we like to assign people to places. I guess you'd consider him pretty far on the left. One of those. And it's interesting because the left, just like the right, left and right, whatever, you know, depending on their positioning in that side, in that aisle, on that team, if you will, there's tremendous amounts of intellect on either side. And I find that I'm very interested in left wing intellectuals as long as they're actually intellectuals, as long as they're actually astute and literate and know what they're talking about. Granted, I'm not among the hyper intellectuals. I don't think, I'm fucking punching way above my weight class sometimes in matters of the mind. But when I'm talking to like people who are very, very deep in Marxist theory or communist theory or like whatever, like some of those people are fucking like they're very well read, very well versed, hugely competent in those theoretical, abstract, cerebral realms. My man, Deadly Sinner AK, I've always considered to be among them. And then when you go from those like deep intellectual waters, and you filter it down into the mainstream where it's very reactive and very, my team good, your team bad, rah, 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 rah. You lose a lot of like the actual discussion, which is kind of what we were talking about. So he sent me this whole book online, and it's like a 250-page book. Suffice to say, I have not read the 250-page book, Imagined Communities by Benedict Anderson, but I did read a little bit of it. And it's interesting. To me, it struck me immediately as some of that postmodern, like post-structuralist, really abstract, pretty outright Marxist thinking, but it also struck me as very much a classic piece of sociology in the sense that it's not defining something or opining about something or positing something. It's just observing, very objective, truly objective in that way, which is what sociology is. Sociology is observing social phenomena and describing it, almost like anthropology in that sense. There's not really an opinion, in my view. There isn't really an opinion to be had about it when you're just watching what happens. Guy crosses the street. Guy gets hit by a car. Guy curses him out and throws him the middle finger. That happened. Don't really matter if you think that was good form or bad form, or if the driver should have stopped, or where's the police? Is this what happens in a degraded? Blah, blah, blah. It ain't really about that. But I found it interesting because then we started talking about it, just the quick little bit that I'd read. And immediately my first thought is how our own biases are pretty, like, it's really, really hard to get out of your own biases. So in any event, just looking at it really quickly, right? So here's the basic premise, as far as I can understand, is that Mr. Anderson is positing that the nation it's an imagined community. And, how to, in thinking of that as a nation, as an imagined community, how does patriotism and nationalism, etc., like rely on that cohesiveness of this collective group shared imagination? Fascinating stuff. Not too different than social contract theory. And this is like kind of academic. And when I'm reading this, I'm like, holy shit. My first thought is that it's kind of like written in a snobby, patronizing, fucking almost like by an academic for other academics types of way. It's like it's written strictly for the academy. I'm thinking I'm reading this, and I'll read the fucking prompt and the premise in a second. Like, how is the layman, the average dude, the layman of this world, the fucking regular people, how are they going to read this and find any meaning in it whatsoever? Like, it's gibberish, academic jargon, one could argue. This is the reason I say that, because Anderson says the aim of this book is to offer some tentative suggestions for a more satisfactory interpretation of the anomaly of nationalism. My sense is that on the topic, both Marxist and liberal theory have become etiolated. See, like, I don't even know that fucking word. Etiolated? The big diction has fallen short. My sense is that on this topic, both Marxist and liberal theory have become etiolated in a late Ptolemaic effort to save the phenomena. And that reorientation of perspective in, as it were, a Copernican spirit is urgently required. My point of departure is that nationality, or as one might prefer to put it in view of that the world's multiple significations, nationness as well as nationalism are cultural artifacts of a particular kind. Like, it's fucking just written all like that. It's how are you? You can't fucking tell this to somebody. There's a lot to be said for writing things and speaking things and reading them in an accessible way without dumbing down the message. I will be trying to argue that the creation of these artifacts towards the end of the 18th century was the spontaneous distillation of a complex crossing of discrete historical figures, but that once created, blah, 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 you get the point. You get the point. The small version of that I found in the first couple pages that I read, like I said, I didn't read the whole thing, obviously. I propose the following definition of the nation. It is an imagined political community, and imagined as both inherently limited and sovereign. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff. The bigger point of it is that was cool as fuck to hear from my boy about it. And as we're talking about it, we just started fucking like spiraling. And my immediate thought was like, yeah, this is like academic shit, dude. Like, I haven't read anything like this in a long time. The last time I read something purely academic was my attempt at reading the 24-hour ancient Greek hero. And like I said, then that was hard as shit to get into, hard as shit to kind of read and like do more than just go through the words and act like I know what I'm reading. Like it's fucking tough. But it was really good talking to my mans because inherently it's like, well, we're talking about this, then we're talking about that, then we're talking about this, and we're talking about that. And it's like, damn, even if some people would perceive you to be on the total polar opposite of the political spectrum, at the end of the day, we agree on shit. I mean, what is a nation? That's the basic idea of this book that he sent me. What is a nation? What is a national? What is a nationalist? Therefore, what is nationalism? You know, the idea that it exists only in our collective imagination, that makes it a social construct. It's socially constructed and agreed upon that we're all participants in it. Maybe, but then again, maybe like, how the fuck do I explain that? How do I explain that to some bull just coming in the burger shop with paint on his hands and fucking work boots or hard hat helmet? Like, yeah, it's interesting. There's a certain point to me where I'm kind of familiar with the stuff, but that here I am lambasting someone else for exclusionary in group preference in their writing. But really, if you're in academia, if you're in the academy, it makes sense that you're writing in the academic tradition. So who translates it? What is a nation? What is a nation? Who makes up a nation? Do nationals make up the nation? What's the limits and what's the like parrot? Like, how does a nation exist? Does our nation exist just because of the Constitution? Okay. What is the Constitution then of the nation? Is that a piece of writing or is that the people who constitute the whole? Nation is its people. I've heard people say before. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. And that makes me, then we started talking about my thinkings on Daimons and fucking Thumos and all that other cool, what I think is way cooler stuff, more applicable to the self than it is to this whole. It's tough to be, you can't really speak about the whole with authority. Shit, it's hard for me at least to speak about myself with authority. I'd like to, you know, the stronger my convictions are, the more authority I have in discussing myself and what I believe I stand for and this, and that. But even then, it's like, how am I going to stand for being an American if there's a fucking misunderstanding or not clear conception of what it means to be an American, to be part of a nation, to constitute my portion of the nation? Very interesting stuff. So shout out to you, Mr. Deadly Sinner AK. Great to hear from you, dude. I'd much rather talk about Thumos, Thumos and fucking Cleos, Daimon, I keep thinking about that Daimon concept. It's so fucking cool, I think. You know, like, what is a Daimon? Is it like this collective fucking thing that we all have to tap into? Or do we have individual Daimons? Is it a part? I mean, the definitions that I talked about the other day through my shitty audio, it's like, it's, what is it, like a lesser spiritual being is kind of what it said. A lesser form of spirit. So we're interfacing with a spirit. So is it like a guardian angel almost? I guess that is kind of what some of the definitions said. A guardian angel-esque. So maybe we have guardian angels and we have a daimon that we interface with. Is it good or bad? I guess it goes either way. Yeah, super cool. Super cool. And as I'm thinking about it, right, like I'm just thinking about how does it work? Like, what's the applicability of it? It's almost combining those things to me seems as if it's a pretty strong achievement philosophy in a regard. I wrote this. It's like the alignment of one's daimon with Thumos. I fucking misread my own damn note. What do I have? Verbatim what I wrote. Alignment of one's daimon with Thumos. Fuck, I'm reading the same thing. My thinking is a daimon is almost a disembodied hero energy one can tap into. And Thumos is the spiritedness or hyper positive energy to tap into that daimon with. So they kind of work together. Tap into the daimon with one's Thumos to whatever end. That logical end to me seems to be that idea of Kleos, of glory. But that's where the question is. That's where the question is. Glory to what end? Glory to what pursuit? For what function? For what purpose? For what reason? What's the ethos behind the Kleos? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fascinating shit. At least I find it to be fucking fascinating. Tap into one's daimon with a harnessed Thumos in pursuit of Kleos. And even my man Deadly Sinner AK, right? Like, I don't really share this podcast with too many people yet. Only people on the low that I trust and that I fuck with and that might actually be interested in what the fuck I'm talking about out here. Now, I think this is the most interesting stuff in the world, but not everyone does. Not everybody fucking does. They'd rather talk about the Epstein list or fucking Orange Man's ankles or fucking some other dumbass shit. But, I mentioned even quickly the other day that Daimon is not to be confused with demon. Whichever spelling of demon one wants to apply, Demon or Daemon, because Daimon is Daimon. My man Deadly Sinner AK fucking pushed back on that a little bit. He started looking at the etymology of it, the root word, because of course it sounds similar. But isn't it coming from his perspective, which is probably, again, it depends what paradigm. Is it left and right, or is a better application of this monotheism versus polytheism? In my view, I hold myself to be a monotheist. There is one king, there is one God, and that is it. But that doesn't mean that the other shit ain't real. That doesn't mean that the Romans were wrong in their pantheon, the Egyptians were wrong in their pantheon, the fucking Vikings were wrong in their pantheon, the Sumerians, etc. Why did all cultures across all times, across all geographical areas, draw the same shit on caves? They all saw the same. Like, this shit's so fascinating. What is the truth behind the Silmarillion and the creation story, so on and so forth? Whatever. That's a whole different fucking tangential way of thinking. But if we split the paradigm into, let's just say, monotheism versus polytheism, which is a very strong paradigm to look at this stuff with, Daimon, what's the difference if we're tapping into this kind of fucking thing that exists somewhere between the material realm and then the fucking wide, vast expanse of the spiritual realm? Super, super interesting. And surely not all those things are bad. Like, there's occult elements to studying spiritual things, obviously, but I guess that kind of comes down to what you worship about it. Like, to what reliance do you have on it? Seems kind of silly to me that studying, let's just say, astrology is evil and Wiccan and pagan, and like, I don't think that stands that that's an evil thing, because this is like the sociology of the spectral realms and shit. Like, I'm just observing what's going on. Now, if you're worshiping Mars, Saturn, that's a whole different kind of fucking thing, in my view. But like I said, I'm way out of my weight class on this shit. Very interesting. So, assuming we have a positive, friendly, empowering, enlightening, motivating, excellence pursuing daimon, yeah, it makes sense we should tap into that fucking bull. Like, tap into that energy, that identity, that sense of identity of oneself. Tap into it with Thumos and fucking, like I was saying, just tap into it and fucking get some. That's high energy shit. So I was happy to, just on a whim, I put that out here. On a whim, my buddy hit me up. And then on a whim, we're talking about this, in my view, high level shit in between cleaning a deep fryer and serving French fries. Motherfucking A. That shit's awesome. That shit's super cool. And yeah, that's about what the fuck I'm thinking about today. The daily readings, of course, I'm still doing my daily readings and shit, but this is kind of front of mind for me at the moment. All different ways to ascend, to elevate, to fucking just keep getting better, keep fucking hammering, as the saying goes. And even then, like, I caught a couple minutes the other day, and I keep a few books in my backpack and shit, like in my car. I got that shit on. I keep that motherfucking thing on me, you know what I'm saying? And I was reading very quickly, just killing a couple minutes before work. I was reading my Neville Goddard book, The Power of Awareness. And as I'm thinking about all these things, I'm flipping through Neville Goddard's book, and there's a quote. He's all about the manifesting and that kind of stuff. The idea that the mind shapes reality, and then we manifest things through our focusing on them. There's a quote that I liked. He says that everything depends upon your concept of yourself. That which you do not claim is true of yourself cannot be realized by you. He says to assume it. You do this by imagining that you already are what you want to be and already have what you want to have. That sounds a lot like Daemon Thumos kind of thing going on to me. So that's what I'm fucking thinking about on this fine Friday morning, 8:41 in the morning, 20 minutes in. Hell yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to end this real quick with one thing from my fucking daily positive thinking every day. Norman Vincent Peale. This was yesterday's quick blurb to think positively every day. So I'm going to end it with this. It's not today's, but it's a pretty good one, and it's kind of relevant. Norman Vincent Peale says, keep your mental and spiritual contact points cleaned so that God can operate through your mind. Tap in, live right, be righteous, crush, kill, destroy, etc. Anyway, fucking happy Friday. I'm going to roll out of here. Thanks for hanging out with me this fine Friday morning. Appreciate you guys. BS with Hannas on YouTube. BS with Hannas on Spotify podcast, Apple podcast, Amazon Audible, heavy blues metal. I like to do that at least as much, if not more, than I like to run my mouth and think about shit. Heavy blues metal, NikkiBHannas.com, NikkiBHannas.bandcamp.com, Nikki B. Hannas on all streaming services. Happy Friday. One love. Keep it real. Crawling out of hell. Peace.